Okay, wonderful. So, good evening, everybody. My name is Richard Dowsett. I'll be hosting the meeting tonight. I'm a member of the executive and a director for the Halton Peel Humanist Community. Our humanist community has been around for some time now, providing wonderful events and also community for humanists in the Halton Peel area. So, if you'd like to join us, then of course you can go to our website, hp-hc.ca. And there you'll find a link to our YouTube channel with all our former presentations, including in about a week's time this one. If you want to review it, you can certainly do that. And there's opportunities to join us for an annual membership of $35. You can sort of support us in what we do, identify yourself as a humanist in the Greater Toronto area, and take advantage of certainly a lot of our events that are social, are informational, educational, and also community events where you can meet with like-minded people and discuss topics of interest of the day. So if you'd like to do that, I said go to hp-hc.ca. Now, this evening, we are very fortunate to have with us two very dedicated and knowledgeable volunteers from Dying with Dignity Canada. We have Karen Blair, who is a presenter for the ACP presentation, Advanced Care Planning, that we'll be doing tonight, and Miyako Issei as well. She is going to be our resource person and will be answering a lot of our Q&A and questions. So they'll be dividing and conquering and getting us all the information that we could want on advanced care planning, exactly what that is and how you go about it, and all of the ins and outs of that. So there will be time, of course, as said, for Q&A. So write down your questions as we go. Save up those things so Karen can give you all the information you need. There may be things that she gets to that you want to answer, but save your questions to the end, and we can have a fulsome Q&A and of course a discussion up until our ending time tonight. So again, thank you for being here, everybody. And now I would like to turn the floor over to our main presenter for this evening, Karen Blair.
Well, thank you very much, Richard. Pleasure to have all of you online, and I can totally relate to those of you who are just showing your name and not your faces, because many of us are zoomed out after a full day of work. Teddy's probably exhausted, but I do see you, Teddy, so thanks for showing up, because sometimes we tend to just not show up when we're tired after a full day. So I hope this is informative and helpful, and get some thinking going, really get some conversations going internally with yourself, and then with those around you, and with the friends in your community, because I think it's a very important issue. I know I chose to become a volunteer with Dying with Dignity just because I see dying with dignity as a human rights issue. And I've always been passionate about human rights, whether it's here in Canada or whether around the world. And end-of-life choices is really a human rights issue. And I think we're very lucky in Canada to be able to have this conversation and to find like-minded people and to educate people about it. Because as we discussed before, it's not the case in all countries in the world. And so that's my mandate tonight, and the mandate of Dying with Dignity Canada. It's really about education, about choice, and about empowerment. And I can tell this group is all about that: education, choice, and empowerment. So I'm here in just a capacity to educate and to share information about advanced care planning. And my wish for you is that you feel empowered enough to get clear on some of your choices, and maybe not even just tonight, but to at least get clear on the power that you have to think about it yourself and make those choices in the future. So this will be about a 30-40 minutes presentation. And as was already mentioned, we'll have a Q&A. I think the key takeaway, and I do see different age groups here, is to realize that advanced care planning isn't just about if we get really old and we have to start thinking about it. It's for all of us at any age. It's never too late. Because we never know what can happen in life. And so it's useful to have thought about these things at whatever age we are. And also a key takeaway I would want you to know is that it's an ever evolving process, because if someone is in their 30s and creating an advanced care plan, maybe 30 years later, they'll have different values, they'll have different thoughts, they'll have different health things that they're considering. So it's an ever evolving process of rethinking your end of life choices. And again, emphasizing that this is a very personal choice. I know for me, it's very personal. I had a father who passed away from brain cancer, and I do know that in the conversations with my mom post that time, she wishes that they had had more conversations about end of life before it got to the place that it did. And I think that's the unfortunate thing, is that we often don't start thinking about it until we've had someone in our life or it happens to us personally. So research tells us that 93% of people are interested in having an advanced care plan, but only 17% actually do it. So that's what this is about, is to become more than the 17% and to get that number up to the 93% that are interested. So I'm going to share the screen now. Can everyone see it?
Yes.
I can.
Yes. Okay, great. So planning. Planning is an integral part of life, and just getting to this stage we are tonight, we had to plan to get here. So we're planning all the time, whether it's in work or our home or our careers or our holidays. We plan for retirement. We're always planning. If we're parents, we're planning possibly for our kids with RESPs. We create wills. And we create estate plans. So that is what today is about. It's about a plan, and it's a personal healthcare plan. And what I would like to emphasize, and people kind of get this mixed up, we need to start using the right vocabulary, because a will is for when you pass away, whereas an advanced care plan is for when you are alive. An advanced care plan is for when you are living, but you're unable to speak for yourself. So that's the difference. And a will can often be put in a safety deposit box, but an advanced care plan definitely shouldn't be put away. And it needs to be a document that people in your world know about, and it needs to be accessible and, of course, talked about. The goal today is to provide you with some important concepts about advanced care plan, give you an opportunity really just to think about your wishes for future care, get you thinking about those wishes and writing them down. And it'll help you to talk with your healthcare providers. It'll help you to talk with the loved ones around you and friends. And so really, I mean, I can tell this group is a group that is always interested in informing and the learning mindset and having these discussions. So, and sometimes it's really important to have people outside of even our personal lives, but a larger circle to have these conversations. So the agenda today really is, what is ACP? Why complete an ACP? The planning process and the next steps. So advanced care plan is really an overarching plan for serious injury or illness and or at end of life. Looking at this image, you can see it's an overarching process of your personal reflections as to your values, and having conversations with key people around you, and then formalizing those wishes, formalizing those ideas into what we might call a substitute or into a directive. And in that directive, you have to identify who your substitute decision maker is, which we touched on before. An advanced care plan really is at the heart of being an empowered patient. It's important for adults at all ages, and it's important for yourself, and it's important for you to know about others in your life who might have an advanced care plan. It's a process, it's not an event, and it's about personal reflection and important conversations. So why is a plan important? Well, it's because it gets you thinking. It's going to be tailored to your wishes, and your wishes at end of life, when you can't speak for yourself, are very different than mine. And it's because of our different life experiences, our different values. It ensures that your wishes will be known and more likely followed. At the beginning of this conversation, we were talking about how in some cases, in a certain situation, at end of life, it isn't as we planned, but the better situation is if you at least have your thoughts written down and have these conversations with important people in your life, there's more likelihood that your end of wishes will come to fruition. So I think that's important. Why is plan important? It reduces anxiety for people around you. So I'll share a personal experience here where someone in my family had an aneurysm, and unfortunately everything unfolded quite quickly, and it was very, very obvious that there was no advanced care plan, and there had not been any previous conversations with his partner or with the children. And each of those people, the partner and the children, had very different thoughts about what should happen. And it caused a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety in the hospital room. And I can say 20 years later, there's still a lot of stress around that. And if those conversations had happened, there's more likelihood that that family would not have gone through that level of anxiety that they did in the moment, nor would there be the long-term impact. So that's a real potent example of what we don't want to have happen. And hopefully when you have a plan, it increases communication. It helps you get the right vocabulary. It helps you identify your values. And it's really important for as I said, at any point in your life. So how to create an advanced care plan? It's really 4 steps. You have to consider what you would want in that advanced care plan. You need to decide. You need to document it, and then it needs to be reviewed over time. So as I mentioned, it could be reviewed annually. It could be reviewed every 10 years. It kind of depends on what stage you are in life. And I will say that Dying with Dignity Canada has an excellent kit on their website. And that kit, you can go on and you just find the kit depending on which province you're in. We're talking about Ontario here. It's actually at 33 to 38 pages. Sounds daunting, but what it is a very thorough step-by-step document that helps you document some of your wishes, or at least get you thinking about something. So I've got a page here of that 33-page document that says, use the following tables and questions to help you think about and identify your personal values and beliefs. So what are your values about being in uncontrollable pain? What are your values or thoughts about being alone? What are your thoughts about what happens when you lose your mobility? All of these different things would just get you thinking about something that might happen to you at end of life. So the documentation is, of course, where you put those ideas, those values, and those wishes down. And the reviewing is, as I've said, make sure that you're reviewing it on a constant basis. Values and beliefs, this is the first step. It's the consider step. Before filling out your advanced care plan and getting it down on paper, you want to ask about your values, which is one of the things I was just outlining an example in the kit. You want to talk about what's important to you end of life. You can first talk about what's important to you right now when you're living. Have these important conversations: independence, autonomy, travel, work, volunteer basis. But then when you're maybe can't speak for yourself, I know even in a conversation with my mom, I know that is a certain kind of linen that she really brings her comfort. And that would be what the linen would be that she would want on a bed if she couldn't speak for herself. Or what kind of aroma would she like in the room? It's almost similar to the birthing plan that we create when we have children. We decide what kind of room we want. We decide who we want around us. It's all those kind of things. So in your end of life, what are some of those things that your values? And then, of course, you have to decide on your substitute decision maker. And it's your right to have a substitute decision maker. And this is the right to have someone is a real honor, I think, and a privilege in our society to be able to do that, because it may be that the person that most people would think would be your substitution decision maker is not the person that you actually want. So it's kind of nice that we have that option to decide who that would be. So let's talk about that, the substitute decision maker. That is the second step. It's deciding who that person is. This person must be someone you appoint to make the decisions on your behalf if you lose capacity to make the decisions about your own personal care. And it should be someone who knows you really well and who will respect your beliefs, values, and whom you trust to carry out your wishes. And again, I emphasize that it may be not someone who you think it would be. Some people may decide it could be a spouse that just says, you know, I just really want to be your partner in this kind of situation. So could it be our child, or could it be a friend? Or when I get in a healthcare situation, I just freeze. So it shouldn't be me. You know those kind of people, right? That's not the right person. So who is it that you know that will respect your wishes, but also speak up? So they can't be timid. They have to stand firm in what your wishes are. And so that's really important to know who that is. So who to appoint as a substitute decision maker? There are some criteria. The criteria are the person has to be legal age, 16 years. They have to be mentally capable, readily available to be contacted. So that doesn't mean they need to be in the same city, but they have to be readily available to be contacted. So if you have someone who's a substitute decision maker and they decide to go on a 2-year journey around the world, you maybe need to adjust that and create and choose someone else. So that's why it's an ever evolving process. It's got to be someone you trust, who respects your beliefs, as I said, and not prohibited by a court order or a separation agreement. In most provinces, including Ontario, you can appoint more than one person. And it's actually suggested that you'd have 2 or 3 substitute decision makers. And that's obvious because someone may not be able to be contacted. So that's why you'd have 2 or 3. And we suggest that you appoint them independently. And that's really important because if the first person you name can't be reached, then the second person can only speak for you if you've identified them as being independent. If you jointly identify them, like and say, it's got to be my son and my daughter, and both of them, then that can cause some delays in your care if both of those people can't either be there, or in some cases you might get a differing of opinion in that kind of crisis situation. So it should be person number 1 and then person number 2. And under actually, I just mentioned that under the law, what happens is if they're not appointed, then they have to wait till both of those people are together. So what if you do not appoint a substitute decision maker for health and do not have a legal guardian? You will be automatically assigned a substitute decision maker. And according to the Ontario guidelines, it's a spouse or partner first, and then a child or a parent, then a parent with right of access, and then a brother or sister, and then any relative or a close friend. And if no one can be found, then it's an office of the public guardian or trustee. So there is a criteria and hierarchy. So the next step, of course, is document. And that is taking into consideration all those thoughts, all those wishes, and getting it down into a document. And again, Dying with Dignity Canada has some resources there for you. And it needs to be written while you're well and able to make decisions, and in which you state your wishes for medical or non-medical care. So I want to just emphasize that this isn't just about medical, it might be non-medical. I mentioned the linen, that would be a non-medical idea, whereas medical, it might be a do not resuscitate idea. So all of those things you want to be able to include in your end of life wishes if you aren't able to speak for yourself. So just to be clear, the advanced care plan includes all of those conversations, and then the document is potentially, it's called something different in every province, but for now we're going to be calling it an advanced directive or a medical directive. And in Ontario, sometimes they just call it your wishes. So again, the vocabulary is different, but as long as we're talking, we understand what we're talking about. So this advance directive, as I've stated, has your wishes in it. And you might be including where you want to be in end of life, the food or the drink that you might want to be given if you can't speak for yourself, the treatments that you do or do not want, if you want spiritual support, if you have any legacy projects that you want implemented. When is it used? Well, obviously in a medical emergency or in any other circumstance that you're unable to speak for yourself. So maybe you end up having a stroke or a coma. Those are examples of when you cannot speak for yourself, and none of us can predict when that might happen. I gave you a perfect example of what happened in my family. It will, by doing all this, it really will assist the people around you and decrease any anxiety for you and for them. Do you need to have one? No, you don't need to have one. It just helps to have one. And again, it's not a legal document, but it is good to date it. And so it is important when you create this document that it is accessible in an emergency situation. And the suggestion is to have this information with your substitute decision maker, somewhere obvious in your house. It should be, some people carry something on their phone where you can actually identify who your substitute decision maker, could be something in your wallet, who you identify who your substitute decision maker is, anyone who should be contacted in case of an emergency. We've heard of stories where somebody, has it in their kitchen, but, the paramedics only end up in the front hallway. Right. So where is it that it could be to indicate who should be phoned in case you cannot speak for yourself? We always think that we'd be able to say something, but it may be that you can't. So that wallet card is a good idea, something on your phone. And these actions will assist first responders and those responsible for your care in selecting the treatments. And of course, a lot of these situations are emergencies. So as I mentioned, it's not legally required to have an advance directive, and only you can create it. That's really important when you're talking to people. It can kind of get mixed up with some of the MAID issues. Only you can create it. And if you do not have an advance directive, others may not know your wishes. And that's the whole point in this. On the other hand, you may have specific medical condition for which you do not want all available treatment. So that's why when you have this document, and it needs to include everything that you want and everything you don't want for medical treatment. So start the process now, because obviously over time, there needs to be a chance to review it, think about it again. We often recommend every couple years on your birthday, maybe not on your birthday, but maybe a couple days after your birthday, put it in your calendar and just write ACP review day and just take a look at it. And if there are some changes, maybe there's different health issues, or maybe the person who was your substitute decision maker is no longer the right person, then you want to adjust that document and date it and sign it again, just so someone can see that, maybe it's a cross out of one thing or an addition of another thing. And again, it's not a legal document, but it can provide the information that some emergency people might.
Karen, I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt. Occasionally we're getting a scratching sound, like potentially something is touching the microphone.
Okay, it's probably my papers. I have just a couple notes. Okay. Hopefully that's better.
All right.
So that's really the whole presentation today. I'd like to summarize what we've covered. An advanced care plan includes documentation of your advanced directive, and your advanced directive really is your wishes and the identification of your substitute decision maker. And we've talked about why it's important to do and how to do it. And being here today, you've taken the first step to really think about it, get your conversations happening with yourself personally, and then, of course, with others around you. And my overriding message is be prepared for the best and the worst, because life happens and we just need to be ready. So I'd like to hand it over now back to Richard.
Okay, thank you very much, Karen. That was a very informative presentation, certainly. What I've done just now is put a document that is a resource document, a very useful resource document. It was provided by DWDC. I've put that in the chat so that you can reference this at a later date. So that was very useful. And in a little while, I'll also put a survey in as well that talks about the presentation today, just getting DWDC some feedback on the presenters this evening and what the presenting was, the content and the manner of the presenting. So if you could do us a favor of going to that survey at some point after the meeting and just answering the few questions there, that would be greatly appreciated. So now we're going to turn things over to Mieko Issei, who's going to be our resource person this evening to answer any questions. And of course, Karen will still be here if needed to answer any questions on the presentation itself. Do we have any questions at all, or is there? Costas, yes, please.
Yes, I guess I will start first. I got a little bit of a mix. I got sort of. I was probably my own confusion, if anything, because I keep hearing about different provinces, calling it different things. So in the beginning, I was under the impression that it can be a legal document, yet at some stage it was referred to as not being a legal document, which is what I thought. So I kind of like to clarify. So the plan or the advance directives are just our wishes, similar to what actually my lawyer actually told me when I did my will, but there is no legality into it.
No, so the advance directive, there's another document that we didn't talk about, was power of attorney for personal care. That's a legal document. And you also can name your substitute decision maker in that document as well. That's actually the reason for that document, and it legalizes it. But it doesn't necessarily, well, you could put all the details in it and all your wishes on that too. But I think the advance directive goes in more detail, more personal things. You can, especially if you're hiring someone from a lawyer, you don't want to waste your time in putting all these details in. But the other thing I can recommend for an event, power of attorney, you can get forms online and fill it out yourself. You do not need it to be notarized or written by a lawyer. But the POA of personal care is legal. The advance directive is not.
Okay, because we do have both a power of attorney and a will. Okay, so there are elements about the DNR and a specific wishes in case of for cremation and all that stuff. But what you're referring to, the plan is obviously a more holistic approach to it. But my confusion is to which part effectively can become part of a legal document and which is just a wish. Where in the case of the wish, for example, even the people who have the power of attorney can really just scrap your wish, to put it mildly.
I know there's so many forms too, because Karen touched upon it, the do not resuscitate order. That's another document to have. But you have to have a conversation with your doctor, because only a doctor or a registered nurse or a practical nurse can request it, and it's got a serial number on it, so to make sure it's authentic. So it's not something you can just sort of get a copy of and fill it out yourself. And generally speaking, they don't require a do not resuscitate order unless you're in a situation that may require it. Like, so you go to the hospital to even have elective surgery, that they usually talk to you about a DNR, because things can happen. But if you're healthy, you're doing well, unless you're so against being resuscitated on any circumstances, then normally you wouldn't get a DNR order until your medical conditions necessitate your circumstances. And then again, but I believe in getting all the documents. Like, I have a wallet card, I have a notice on my phone, I have an advance directive, I have a POA, I have everything. And I did this for my parents. And even though I did all of that, it was not carried out exactly as I wish. So the more you do, the better. I guess that's what I'm trying to encourage. Don't think you're covered just because you did one thing.
I understand this, but it's not legal, right? It's not like a legal document into it. It's more like.
Well, my personal experiences in the hospital and end of life with my in-laws as well is that hospital staff generally are reasonable. Like they're not going to be demanding, where's the legal documents? You know, they'll follow things, but if you didn't like it, you could say, you know what, I don't want palliative sedation for my mother, because I know she would want to talk to us and be lucid as much as she can. And generally speaking, hospital people are compassionate and understanding. But if you have the paperwork, it just helps a lot of things. And also with relatives that come in and think you're doing horrible things, you have the paperwork too. So it's just good to have it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
I was thinking about my own situation, certainly and when Costas was talking about that, the difference between the advanced care planning, advanced directive, and the POA, and the fact that the power of attorney is a legal document, and then that person is empowered to do kind of what they believe you would want. And so certainly the old style of doing this, in my experience, was that you nominated a power of attorney for health that was going to be your substitute decision maker, and then you kind of just let them carry on with it. You know, you hope somehow that they know you well enough based on your knowledge, your conversations over the years, your relationship with them, the trust that you may have. But certainly I think it was very much left to chance that they would know all the things that they need to know. And really the advanced care plan, it seems to do kind of fill in all those blanks so that the person doesn't have to rely on just kind of this body of knowledge. They have all of those details filled out, and you've had the conversation with them so that they're in accordance with them, and they're not going to go off and do something crazy because you've already had this conversation. And if you sensed that they were going to go off and do something different, you would think twice about having them as your power of attorney. So I think that the two things go together beautifully.
And just to add that a lot of people get confused with power of attorney for property. And it's very different in the sense you still name someone to handle your finances, but finances are just much more straightforward, you know, sell, buy, keep, versus when it's your health, it can be so complex, so many emotions. It's so important, I think, as Richard said, to put the details, because it's not a black and white as in property. Well, you might have some greedy struggles, but other than that, it's you either sell the house or you keep the house, you know.
Now, is there a difference between power of attorney for health or power of attorney for personal care and a substitute decision maker, or is that kind of interchangeable?
Well, Karen, you jump in, but as far as I know, is that people also call it. There's a couple of other names. There's so many names for this, but the bottom line is, it's best to have a POA of personal care. So that's legally naming a substitute decision maker. And then also to have an advanced directive so that the details of what you would like that substitute decision maker to do can be there. And also when you develop an advanced directive, it really encourages communicating with your family, because as Karen says, it's not just about getting your wishes done. It's you do it too to help your family. And after going through the kit, it's funny, before, that 31-page kit that Karen was saying, before I went through that, I thought, no, I want things a certain way. I don't want a funeral. I want to be cremated. No fuss, no muss. And so when I talked to my daughter about that, she goes, well, gee, that seems too fast. Like, can't we have like a family party or something? And I said, you know what? So I stepped right back and said, you know what? You do what you want to do. What's comfortable. I'll leave some money. Spend what I said, take a trip on it if you don't want to do anything, or spend it on a party, but I leave it up to you. But before I went through that document, because it really stimulates deeper thought, and that helped me realize things. So I feel very comfortable now with what I've said to my daughter and what we have, because I know it's giving her some comfort and some guidance, and then also I'm getting my wishes looked at as well.
Thank you. Kelly, you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I do. I look forward to reading that document. I think earlier on you had said that someone needs to be of complete sound mind to go through this process. Yeah. Is it possible, or is it recommended that you have this conversation with someone who has the beginnings of dementia, or would that disturb them? Or I guess it's all different, but what are your thoughts on that?
So I just want to make sure I understand your question, Kelly. What Karen was referring to is the substitute decision maker needs to be mentally capable. Are you talking about you being a substitute decision maker for someone who has dementia?
Yes, so perhaps this other document has deeper questions that I could sit down with my dad and see if he could talk about it, or
I highly recommend talking, having had an in-law who had Alzheimer's, another person who had multiple comorbidities, and my mother who has dementia. I spoke to all of them. I spoke to them before it got advanced. So it may have changed a bit, but I feel comfortable that I at least had some decision. And I find that it's amazing. You think dementia, they might forget what they ate and they don't know how to wash dishes anymore, but you'd be surprised how deep they can still be when it comes to life and death. So I'd highly encourage, if they visibly get upset, then yeah, scale back, but I don't think you should hesitate to have a conversation.
Okay, yeah, thanks. I kind of wanted to hear that. Thanks.
Thanks, Kelly. Cameron, you have a question or comment?
Sure. So near the start of your talk, Karen, you had described ACP as a right that we have now, and it sounds like a somewhat hard-won right. I'm just wondering how our rights in Canada compare to around the world, and is this something that's outright not recognized in other parts of the world? Or I won't make it a leading question, but I'm just curious about what the range of experiences is.
I can't really comment on that. Karen, can you?
Yeah, I do know that when I was referring to that, I was speaking about my involvement with Dying with Dignity Canada, and the very fact that we have an organization called Dying with Dignity in our country speaks volumes, I believe. And we heard at the beginning of the conversation, who was that? That was Costas, right? You're talking about Greece. So I don't really know except what's happening around the world, except I do know that Canada is on the leading edge of this issue.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love the comment to Karen you were making about personal experience there, certainly saying that how the number of things that this document can actually prevent sort of schisms and breakdowns and estrangements in families, because that's a time when I know any number of friends and family who have encountered problems and developed these estrangements just because of that dying situation. It's such a loaded and stressful and anxious time. And those wounds, they last for a very long time and sometimes never really get changed because, of course, they're final. They're unique and final. And so I think that the role that an ACP can play in kind of preventing some of those miscommunications and schisms from happening it can't be understated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think what's really important, writing it down is great and going through the process so you'll be clear with what you want, but you really need to talk to not just the substitute decision makers. You may not pick your children. They may not want to do it. So you pick a neighbor or a friend or a younger cousin, but your children need to know. And you have to have the conversation and let them have a chance to say, I'm really uncomfortable with this. I don't like this. And then have a chance to talk about it and negotiate it. Because I think writing it down will certainly help clarify and reduce the amount of sort of disagreement, but it's not going to be 100%. Nothing will, because it's personalities. But the more you talk about it in advance with other people, the better it is. And I, with me, I just wished my sister I wanted my parents to tell my sister their wishes. But she, at the time, and she's a wonderful person, but she said, I can't go there. I don't want to talk about our parents' death. So unfortunately, that came to pass when my father, there was a bit of a thing because she did not have heard from his own mouth what he wanted. So I had to make the decision that my sister and I are going to have a continued relationship, good relationship. So I acquiesced to what she wanted, even though I knew it wasn't what my father ultimately wanted. But thankfully, again, he didn't linger too long. So we were both spared that, but that's having reasonable, really good relationships with someone, and it still may not always work 100%.
Thank you. Linda, you have a question or comment?
I got two of them. I'd like to know, does your organization, can I go see somebody to help get this thing set up? Like, does your organization do that?
Okay, well, if you're interested in finding out about the MAID process and MAID, yes, there's all kinds of instructional webinars and videos there, and also you a person you can call and they can direct you. As far as ACP, there isn't a one person that you can talk to. This is why we do these educational seminars. I know they are considering doing a workshop there. It's in development, but I'm not in a position to say when, how, and what, but I know it's in development. So stay tuned, Linda.
Good. Okay. Question number two. What are the laws? I'm going to give you a situation. I know someone who wanted to go through MAID, and the doctor refused to sign the document. And he said, we're not going to talk about this. Here's some other medication you should try. And he was really disrespectful to this person. And the person, let's put it this way, the person took care of it themselves, if you know what I mean. So what are the laws that, like what that doctor should have done?
The doctor by law has to refer you, the person, to another doctor. They do not need to agree. They do not need to go through the process with you. They're totally free to make that choice, but legally they must then refer you to someone who will help you. And if failing all that, especially people who live in a small town and there's like 2 doctors, generally speaking, it doesn't work. You can, there is a directory on the web, DWD's website, to help you link up to doctors that can help you.
Okay, but you don't need doctors to have the 2 witnesses sign your MAID, do you?
You need, Karen, I know you need 2, yes, you need 2 independent doctors to sign, to give assessment, to say, yes, you assess and you're eligible for MAID. One needs to be, if you have like a cancer, incurable disease, they have to be a specialist in that area. And so you get the 2 doctors. And then you also need to have an independent witness to witness that the fact that, yes, you know what you're doing, you're signing this MAID, a request for MAID.
Okay, and the third one is, what is the mental health like? I know in March of 2023, they're going to have a mental health clause that you can do the MAID on the basis of mental health.
Well, Karen, add to this what you say, but again, it's stay tuned, because right now they've just reconstituted the commission. They were working on it last year, but then there was that election, and so the committee was disassembled, and now it's just come back. And in June, they're supposedly going to report on that. So we'll see. It may not have an answer. They may again just extend it, but it is on their books, and they are looking at it. But I don't have an answer for that. Karen, have you heard anything else?
No, it's still in legal process, still committee process at the national level.
Yeah, because I heard they're supposed to put in a mental health clause by March of 2023, because the courts originally had a very broad, a very broad circumstances where you could use the MAID, and then it was narrowed down, and one of the things was taken away was the mental health. So apparently that's supposed to come back in 2023.
Yeah, they're definitely doing their due diligence with all the right specialists across the country and going through all the right processes, because it just has to be done well, the way that currently Dying with Dignity has been done well, and just taking step by step to make sure that it's accepted culturally within Canada. So I think, they're doing the right things in sticking with these committees with all the experts. So as she said, stay tuned.
Yeah, I just don't want any church to force me to live longer than I want to. That's all. I think everybody can relate to that one.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll just let someone else take over.
Thanks, Linda. Yeah, just a reminder again, we've got the resource document that's been posted in the chat and the survey as well. It's just a few questions just to help Diamond Dignity certainly refine this presentation and help our presenters to do as good a job as they can in making these communications to the public. And I can't speak more highly of Dine with Dignity Canada. I've been involved with the organization for a few years now. But there's so many really very committed volunteers like Karen and Mieko, and the organization itself, a human rights charity that's there to protect and to increase the rights of and the choices that we have as Canadians, and moving those along, but also being sensitive to the culture. So I said, I think it's an amazing organization, and I'm happy that Canada is at the forefront of some of these issues, and that we have these rights in Canada that are not available in other countries. I know Australia, I've been following the progress of medical assistance in dying in Australia, and thanks to their government being very much opposed to it, they don't have the rights that we do, and it's a bit of a travesty. And as I said, I'm so glad to be living in Canada.
I think it takes a certain type of person to work for this organization. I appreciate what you're doing. I think it's really important, and I love that we have these rights and rational people, rational non-religious people that are doing this. Also, I was just in Berlin, and I think that even Germany doesn't have as many rights and as much interest as we do here. My aunt, for example, intends to go to Denmark to end her life. So, yay, Canada.
Well, one thing I wanted to mention, to make very clear, I think, Karen, you did say it, is that advance directive, power of attorney, and your will as well, you can change it anytime the way you want it. The only thing is a will, you need a lawyer. So it costs money to do it. But a POA, personal care, you can change it at any time. It's your decision. No one else can write it for you. This is your wishes, your document. You just need to sign it and date it to make it current. So I just want to emphasize that, because some people think, set it and forget it, mentality, and, do it 40 years earlier, and things that can very much change. So you have that freedom.
No, I think there's an important clarification that needs to be made between the advanced care plan and the part of the medical assistance in dying legislation that has to do with advanced directives.
Or advanced requests. Do you mean advanced requests?
Yeah. Thank you. Can you just talk about those differences, please?
Well, advanced directive, as Karen explained very well what it is, it's our wishes. Advanced request is you do not need to you do it while you're still well. You do not need to have a grievous and irremediable illness, and you do it in advance, and it sets out, so it's before you're ill, and it sets out at what level of quality of life that you want. And then if you don't have that anymore, you request MAID. You want to be able to request MAID. And also it helps because right now you can, there's that catch-22. You can request MAID when you have dementia, Alzheimer's, but the catch-22 part is before they give you the lethal injection, you need to be cognitively aware to say, yes, I want it. But if anybody who takes care of some Alzheimer's and dementia people like I have, they would not be able to give consent. So, do you want to have MAID 10 years before you really need it? And so that's why the advance request is coming out, so that you can make the decisions when you're cognitively well, and then you because you just don't want to suffer and see the link. I'm so for the advance request, having seen 3 people in my life dear to me have long difficult journeys before it was a relief by the time they pass. And that's you know, it's sad when you get to when it becomes a relief. That's all I have to say, because you just don't want to see them suffering anymore. So that again, June 23rd, they're supposed to all stay tuned. They're supposed to be giving the government's supposed to be saying, this committee is supposed to give what they want to do with that, whether it's going to be advanced forward or they're going to do a bit more research is required or more polling. But that's part of it too, as well as the mental health, if they would be eligible, and also minors. Karen, what is the term minors?
Yes, whether or not someone under 18 would be able to choose MAID is
yeah.
also under discussion.
Yeah, mature minors. That's
Mature
it.
minors,
Yeah.
Right, because currently 18 and over is a hard and fast rule when it comes to MAID.
Mhm.
Correct.
Right. Okay. Good. Right.
I just have a question for Kevin. Is that your grandson, the picture? Who's that little one?
That's a good picture, isn't it? So got the where's the mustache though?
Yeah.
Usually there's a mustache on there.
Yeah, that is my grandson. We took it on the weekend. He was over at our place and we were playing around with those glasses that he put it on and he hammed it up for us. So I said, I've got to make that my profile picture of Facebook.
Thanks for the laugh.
I enjoyed that presentation, and it's something that we've talked at HPHC before, and this puts it into perspective, brings us up to date with what's happening, and I think it's given me the impetus to download that document and go through it, and I just turned 65 this year, so one foot closer to eternity.
Mhm.
Anyway, thanks a lot for that presentation and for coordinating.
I wish it was like Soylent Green. Has anybody ever seen that movie Soylent Green?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
but I don't know if you're going to be tasting well, Linda.
What?
I don't know how the taste is going to be.
How
No,
you
I mean-
taste it.
Yeah, like when the old man goes and he can just walk in and do it. Yeah, that's good.
You also don't want to attach financial incentives to it, though, right? That's also why blood donation is not paid.
I tell you though, I was at a very interesting Zoom presentation on a new form of, it's not natural burial, which I've heard of, where essentially you're not being buried in anything but a cotton shroud, and you're being buried in the upper surface of the earth to allow microbes to dissolve your body and for you to be not unnaturally preserved, but to go back to the earth in a natural way. The next level of that is, in fact, they've got to come up with a better title, but they call it human composting, which essentially is you have a facility where you have a tube full of organic material and a supercharged biome of bacteria that essentially you go in that tube, and 30 days later, you're nothing but bones. They grind the bones up and they give those back to you. So it's kind of, instead of being cremated, which is obviously a very unnatural process and has only kind of negative byproducts, carbon dioxide, etc. With this process, essentially you're coming out with soil and bone, and it's very efficient and very green. So it's something that's been allowed in a number of U.S. states, but Canada has not had it yet. So I'm looking at it as a business.
How did you call it, Richard?
Human composting.
Okay, that's interesting because in my whale, I had the cremation and the ashes to be in a biourn to actually put it in a cactus so I can prickle people after death.
In a cactus?
It is literally in my will, and of course my wife was kind of okay. So, but human compost actually make sense because you can even make more organic cactuses, because it's going to be a cactus.
I was going to say, yeah, if you burn it, you're reducing your potential to
Exactly.
to feed more prickles.
Exactly. So that's a good one. That's why I'm really interested in it.
We get that going in
Ah.
Ontario. Would be nice.
Yeah, in Sweden, they have it that, like your ashes, or I guess in the human compost, your leftovers, what you do is you put it in a corn husk urn, and then they bury it in shallow, and then they plant a tree on top. I like that idea.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, it's a much nicer headstone than those stone angels. Having a lovely tree growing out of you seems a lot more attractive to me.
I don't know if anyone will get this or how well known a reference this is, but I would like to be cremated while still alive plays, which is a song that is ironic if you listen to the lyrics for that. Okay, I see some people know the lyrics.
Say it again.
I'd like to be cremated while still alive plays, which is a song about basically burning a robot.
Oh, okay.
Who's the band?
Is this referring to the game Portal?
From Portal, yes, it is.
Oh, okay. It's an end credits song that is from a very vengeful robot.
Particularly cares.
It's from a video game. It's very comical in nature.
So see, this just proves the point how important advanced directive is. Look at how complicated and detailed everyone's talking about how they want to be cremated or ashes, but just that part. So another good reason to get your ACP plan going.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, if there are no further questions, I think we should wrap things up here. We won't wrap things up quite yet because I want to get this link from Cameron for. So hurry up, hurry.
All right, fair enough.
But before we go to that, certainly I want to thank for Karen and Mieko for being here today to give us such a wonderful presentation and to sort of twig our minds about this very important topic. It's something that we need to get to. I think that for me, it's exactly what Karen was saying in her presentation, reducing anxiety for people, the death, the dying process, the grieving process, all of those things related to death are so difficult for us to think about. And they are only made more difficult by the stress and anxiety caused in the moment. And if we don't have these things set out, people will make decisions without us. They will go ahead because they have to. There's, as I said before, there's a few big decisions to be made, but there's also 1,000 little decisions that need to be made. And if you can do your part now by setting out your wishes on those things, you can reduce those people's anxiety, all those loved ones in your life, all those friends and relatives. They can, in fact, be left to do what they should be doing in this case, which is handling your passing. Without the necessity for going through these 100 little decisions that you'll all have already made. And so what a great way, what a great gift to give to those people around you to have this ACP plan, have it discussed, and have all of that anxiety reduced so that when you do go, the decisions are already made and they can just concentrate on their own emotional worries without having to think about all this minutia as well. So it's a great gift you can give to those people around you.
And Richard, what I found going through the end of life process with so many family members, I noticed that it also helped the healthcare workers because when the family sort of is together, because a lot of times they're left doing the heavy lifting because some people just can't make decisions and things have to happen, and the poor healthcare workers put in very difficult positions. So you're also helping them as well. I just wanted to point that out. I just noticed that in my life experiences, like it went so much better when people were all in the same page and people were talking. It was just much better.
Absolutely. Yeah. Leave them to do the job that they really need to do, and without having to manage the individuals and the decisions that need to be made. So yeah, great point. Great point. So again, thank you very much to Karen and Mieko. Thank you very much for being here this evening. Another presentation of the Halton Peel Humus community. Check back at HP-HC for our future events. And if you want a recording of this presentation to watch later, George will get that up on the website in a week or so. I just wanted to check in briefly with Teddy, we've already checked in with you, so thanks for being here today. Debbie, you
that's a family member. I'm getting added to the mailing list.
That's fine. That's awesome then. Well, thanks for being here, Debbie, and thanks for Cameron for bringing her here. So, again, great presentation. Thank you very much for being here, and we'll look forward to the next event with Halton Peel Humanist Community.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Okay. Night, everybody.
Bye.
See you, Kevin. Nice to see you.
Bye.
Good evening.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice
Take
job,
care,
Richard.
Linda. Thanks, Cameron.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.